is going to be recorded. Um, so I'm going to teach you how to download it. We're going to go over the exam review for muscles. The entire exam review. We're going to go over it. We're going to answer all the questions. And in order for me to do that, I'm going to need participation from you guys too. Okay, so don't feel shy or whatever about turning on your mic. It's totally weird. We're in a weird situation, but we're making the most out of it. Um, so there's that. What else? Oh, and I guess just a little reminder, this will prolong into 11:05, so you are more than welcome to stay the entire time. But if you have a class at 10, then you can exit the session. That's totally okay too. Um, your attendance will be counted. So here we have a list of everybody that has joined us. So keep that in mind and let your classmates know that they must attend for the entirety of their class time in their live classes. Because we need to keep track of you guys actually, doing the stuff. Okay, anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay, cool. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and is there a quiz for this chapter? Yeah, I would assume so. Go ahead and look on your Blackboard. Let's see. Let me look. Learning modules. On muscles right now. There is a quiz. Yes, I see it here. It's 20 questions, 16 minutes. Um, and you have another question. You're welcome. Okay, so let's get this ball rolling. All right. Okay, so you guys can see my screen here. Do the reviews have a due date? Let me see. The reviews, exam review. That would be a really good question to ask him. I will write that down right now so I can ask him if I speak to him before you do, Melanie, but I'll ask him to review due date. Okay, perfect. Okay, awesome. So yeah. Oh, a quick reminder, if you guys do want to contact Dr. Garcia and in like maybe if it's urgent, if it's not, the best way to reach him is on the phone number that he provided to you. Um, because his emails are being swamped right now. So if you ever want to reach out to him and actually get a response in a timely fashion, go ahead and call the number that he provided to you. Okay. Okay, let's start. Muscle contraction. So have you guys gone over this chapter? Like in person, did he ever go over this chapter with you guys before we had to transition over? Yes. Okay, cool. So a lot of this information should be a little bit more familiar to you or sound a little bit more familiar to you now. Okay, so let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so the first question essentially is what are the events that occur during muscle contraction? So we have to start from the brain, okay? And I think I have a picture of the brain over here. Okay, so just about. Um, quick side note, I am not claiming any of these pictures to be mine. This is copyrighted material. I'm just using this to facilitate your understanding of this information, okay? All the majority of them are in your PowerPoints. So this is straight up the PowerPoint, just copy pasted onto this document. So if you have any questions, you can definitely refer back to your PowerPoint. Everything is there, okay? So first up in muscle contraction, we have the motor neuron. Sends a signal from the brain through the axon to the muscle that it is innervating. Okay. At the synaptic terminal, we have this that we see here. This is the neuromuscular junction, the NMJ, and it releases acetylcholine into this little cleft. This is called the synaptic cleft. And the way that it does so is through an action potential, which means that basically like if you were to play um, with a jump rope, right? And you were to like move it up and down, kind of like forming a wave. Um, that's the way that that happens because it starts in your brain, but the depolarization of the nerve continues and has like this like domino effect, right? It starts off in the brain, but it slowly makes its way down to the axon, where at the synaptic cleft, it releases the neurotransmitter. And specifically, this neurotransmitter is called acetylcholine. We have that right here, acetylcholine. Okay. Once it reaches um, the muscle fiber and releases acetylcholine, what happens is that these these neurotransmitters then get absorbed, and we have T tubules here that they start releasing calcium, because this is basically sending a signal to the entire cell to release calcium, because the way that we contract our muscles is through calcium, which is why it's really important to drink milk. Okay, nobody's laughing. Um, so yeah, so it reaches our T tubules and releases calcium. And when calcium is released, we come up over here. When calcium is released, we have uh, the inhibition, which means the stopping of um, this molecule, which is troponin. So calcium binds to troponin, and as it does so, it changes its shape. And in doing so, it moves this thing, which is called tropomyosin, which is attached to troponin, releasing the actin binding sites, binding sites. Sorry, right here. So you see G-actin, they contain a site, active binding site that can bind to myosin. So basically, it's like a good analogy that I can give you is you're going into some sort of place that you have to pay to go inside. So the payment would be the calcium. The troponin would be the person that is allowing you to go in, that is receiving the payment, and the tropomyosin would be the door in which you pass through, right? So once that is those three steps occur, you release this active actin binding site, which then ultimately frees up so that myosin can bind to it right here, myosin, because actin and myosin love each other. The only thing keeping them apart is the tropomyosin. And lastly, so after you release the actin binding site, you have to give energy to the myosin head in order for it to um, want to bind like fast, to have that contraction, because ultimately, remember, what we're doing is we're wanting our muscles to contract, which means that they're shortening. So we want that myosin head to bind, and to bind with power. So we have to attach NDP to that myosin head, which means that it cocks it back. And in doing so, it cocks it back. So from a resting position, which is this one, to a more active position, which is this one, it then hydrolyzes, which means that it converts the ATP to ADP, and it pushes forward and basically attaches to the acne site. And once it has attached, in a moment of relaxation, what we do is then ATP binds to that myosin head, and it hydrolyzes, which means that it makes ATP back to ADP, and the myosin head detaches from the actin site, and then another molecule of ATP, basically recharges it again, and the cycle continues. Any questions? Am I going too fast for you guys? Talk to me. Everyone good? You're fine. Okay, awesome. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Okay. So there's that. Yes. So that's pretty much muscle contraction in its entirety. So we spoke about the neuromuscular junction. That's basically where the nerve meets the muscle fiber, which would be right here. We spoke about excitation contraction, which is basically the summation of the action potentials to release the calcium into your into your muscle fiber to, initiate that muscle contraction. And we didn't speak about the cross bridge. A cross bridge is basically when myosin and actin, bind. And they call it a cross bridge because you can essentially, cross from this molecule over to this one. They're not attached, as you can see here. Let me make this picture bigger a little bit. No, I have a sarcomere over here, I think. Oh, in this picture right here, you can see that they're not really, they're like hovering in place above other. So when you form the cross bridge, it's basically being able to cross from, A street to B street, essentially. Okay, so we spoke about that. What are the events that occur during muscle relaxation? Like I said, once myosin has binded to the actin active site, we then, attach another P to be able to release it. And once it has been hydrolyzed to ADP, it releases, and then it just goes back to its state. And if we want to continue to contract, we keep adding ATP. ATP, a little reminder for those of you who don't know or don't remember, ATP is basically the energy currency in our bodies. We live off of ATP. Everything that we do is fueled through ATP, which is really important because that's the only way our cells and our muscles, that's the only way that they can move. That's the only way that we can get from point A to point B. Question. Is ATP required for both contraction and relaxation? Yes. Yes. And we can speak about that right now, actually. It's going to go a little morbid, but it's something that occurs. So I'm going to go all the way down because this is a question down here. So for rigor mortis, right? What happens after you die? So I don't know if you guys know, after a person, passes away, their muscles end up stiffening and contracting. And the reason for that is because ATP is released into the cell, because it's no longer like hoarded away, like put away in like a safety piggy bank, whatever. It's released, and in doing so, it's activating those myosin heads, and it's basically forcing the actin to bind to the myosin, and so it's really, 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 it's really contracting the muscle, and nobody's moving that muscle out of place. It's only until after the cells start to decay that the muscles can then relax again. So yes, so ATP is needed for contraction and relaxation. Funny enough, right? You need energy to relax. Okay, let's go back. I know this is a lot of things, guys. Okay, how is tropomyosin exposed? Through what process? What molecules are involved? Okay, so like we said, tropomyosin is this string enzyme right here that you see, and it is moved through the binding of calcium to troponin. Okay, so it's a conformational change, that's what it's called, and the only way that you can move it is if you bind calcium to troponin. If you don't, then there is no way of moving tropomyosin on its own. It doesn't move on its own. It needs a facilitator, essentially. Okay, what is a cross bridge? How does the cross bridge form? Okay, we already went over that. A sarcomere. Okay, a sarcomere is the smallest functional unit of a muscle fiber, right? Because we go from, let's see, we go from, skeletal muscle cell to a myofibril to a sarcomere, right? So you guys can see this here. Like there are layers to this muscle. So a sarcomere is the smallest functional unit of a muscle fiber. It is characterized from Z line to Z line, which is where all the actin is binded to, which is this red thing right here. In the middle, you have your M line, which is where all your myosin are found. Okay, so like I said to you before, the actin is basically hovering over the myosin. They're not touching, not initially. So a couple of, just concepts. The I band basically contains all of the thin filaments, which are the actin filaments. So a good way to remember thin, actin, I is that they all have I in it. So your I band has actin filaments, which are also known as the thin filaments. Okay. Your thick band your thick filaments have myosin, which are known as your I want to say your H band. Yeah, where it's the zone of only myosin. So for that, I don't have a cool little analogy, but if it's not thin, it's thick, right? So you can just associate that with myosin and the H band, which is basically in the middle. It's the part where the actin and the myosin do not overlap. This thing right here is called the M line, and that's where all the myosin heads branch off of. And I think that's much it for that one. Questions? Okay, no questions. Let's continue. Okay. So, so, so I showed you guys, this is a slide in your PowerPoint. In PowerPoint, I'll tell you right now, not 11, 10. So you can definitely, draw it out for, you know, to better your understanding of the concepts. Okay. A skeletal muscle triad. What is a skeletal muscle triad? Let's move those questions down here. Skeletal muscle triad is basically the structure formed by a T-tubule with the sarcoplasmic reticulum known as the terminus cisternae on either side. So we can actually see that here. If I extend this a little bit, right here. So the terminus cisternae, which are these light blue little things, and the T-tubule. The T-tubule is what sends the muscle, the nerve impulse into the actual muscle cell, like within it. And the terminus cisternae are the things that release the calcium into the cell. Okay, define muscle fiber. Well, you guys already know. Define myofibril. Myofibril is a bundle of myofilaments. A couple of these questions are just straight up definitions. We're going to focus on the big picture here. What is the name of the plasma membrane in the skeletal muscle? That's the sarcolemma. That's a very important question. I think you're going to see that on an exam, like 90% sure you might see it on the exam. Know that that's basically the name of you. So okay, so you have a cell, right? And a normal animal cell will have, the membrane will just be called the plasma membrane. But because we have a specialized cell, the muscle cell, its membrane is called a little bit different. It's called the sarcolemma. And that's very important because that's a trait only known for muscle cells. Okay, so that's just a little asterisk there. What is a motor unit? The motor neuron plus the innervated muscle fiber. So remember when we talked about how we're getting the signal to contract, and that's coming from your brain? So that motor neuron, where it has the cell body in your brain, but the axon is innervating the muscle in which it wants to contract, that part plus the actual muscle that is being innervated together is called the motor neuron, the motor unit, sorry. What is a neural structure? What events occur? We already spoke about that. And again, another visual. Oh, that's actually the same slide that we looked at. Okay. What is a motor neuron? Cell bodies whose. Okay, so again, what is a motor neuron? The nerve cell whose body is in the motor cortex region of the brain, and the axon is innervating an effector organ or muscle. Right, because not all of our nerves innervate our muscles. Some of them innervate our organs, and that turns into somatic or the other one. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. But that's more into later in your class. You're gonna get into the breakdown of the nerves. Okay, what is excitation contraction? So excitation contraction coupling is a process by which an electrical stimulus triggers the release of calcium by the sarcoplasmic reticulum, initiating the mechanism of muscle contraction by the sarcomere shortening. So essentially, it's just releasing the calcium by the sarcoplasmic reticulum. And in doing so, initiate the entire mechanism, which is muscle contraction. Wave summation, basically, it's the sending of action potentials down your motor neuron. let's say for example, it's a very small um, action potential, which means that maybe it sent through, so the domino fell essentially, but it wasn't as strong as you would have liked it to be, to the point where it can reach the end of your domino, setup. Wave summation is you're adding more power into throwing that first domino and continuously maybe helping it along the way in, knocking over other dominoes. That way you ensure that the signal gets sent down to the very last thing that you want to excite. That's wave summation. Okay, compare and contrast sarcomere, muscle fiber, and myofibril. Okay, well, a sarcomere is the smallest unit of a muscle, a smallest functional unit of a muscle cell. A muscle fiber is the muscle cell entirety, so that includes the sarcolemma, the T-tubule, all of that stuff. And the myofibril is this thing right here, which I forget. It's just a bundle of myofibrils. So I think myofibril would be the smallest, and then you have your sarcomere, smallest functional units of the muscle fiber, because your myofibril consists, no, your myofibril consists of sarcomeres. So no, I'm sorry, I was right. So sarcomere, and then myofibril, then muscle fiber. Yes. Okay. What are the two types of neurotransmitters found at the neuromuscular terminal? For right now, we're going to focus on acetylcholine. That's basically the neurotransmitter that is released when you are contracting a muscle cell. Norepinephrine is used, but that just depends on the type of receptors that you're working with. We have two types of receptors in our bodies. We have muscarinic and then another one that I completely forget. Cholinergic, sorry, which makes sense because it's acetylcholine. So you have your muscarinic and your cholinergic receptors. So depending on the type of receptor, that's going to tell you whether you release norepinephrine or acetylcholine. Okay, everyone with me so far? I know it's a lot of stuff. Questions, concerns? Everyone good? Okay, cool. I'm good. Awesome. Thank you, Joe. Always there with the feedback. Really appreciate it. Okay. So Twitch, let's define Twitch. Right here in your PowerPoint, it's a single muscle contraction. And that kind of reminds me, like, people say, oh, I have a twitch in my eye. And it's just like a little bit, like, not your entire eye moving, but just like a little piece of it. It's going crazy and it's doing its own thing. That's basically Twitch. Let's compare tetanus to Twitch. I don't think I have tetanus on here. Let me see. No, these are the types of contractions. Okay, so real quick, let's look up what tetanus means. Define tetanus in anatomy and skeletal muscle. Tetanic contraction, otherwise known as tetanus, is a sustained muscle contraction evoked when the motor nerve that innervates a skeletal muscle emits action potentials at a very high rate. Okay, so tetanus is basically when you are, so it's a sustained. So basically, maybe let's say you're exercising and you're working on a certain set of muscles. So for example, if you're squatting, you're working on your hamstrings, or I don't know what you work on when you squat, but I'm going to assume it's the hamstrings. So it's a sustained muscle contraction that would be called tetanus because you're activating that muscle and you're doing so in not a rapid form, but rather it's like a controlled 1-2 form, if that makes sense. So let's compare the two. So tetanus is sustained and controlled, where twitch is just one single muscle contraction. Okay, what else? Excuse me. Okay, so here we have isometric contraction. Okay, isometric contraction, muscle contracts, but it does not shorten. So essentially, there is no movement. Iso means like no net movement. I don't know if any of you guys took biology 1, but isotonic means no net movement. So I kind of associate iso to, no, like the same amount of things going in and out of the cell. Here would be muscle contraction, but it does not shorten, which means that there is no movement. That's isometric. Isotonic. Do we have isotonic on here? Isotonic, muscle shortens and movement occurs. So isotonic is basically the big category, and then it could then be further categorized into concentric or eccentric. But overall, isotonic basically means that the muscle is shortening, and therefore, as a result, movement occurs. Concentric contraction. So going into one of the isotonic contractions, concentric basically says that your tension is greater than your load. So basically when you're doing a bicep curl, like the picture, it's basically saying that your muscle is contracting more because or not more, but rather like trying to withhold a heavy weight because you're going against gravity. Therefore, there's tension. Question? It shortens. Yes, exactly. The muscle shortens. Thanks, Melanie. So yeah. What else? What else do we have here? Oh. Oh man, you guys are funny. I miss seeing this. This is not fun. Anyways. Okay, so what else? Concentric contraction. Okay, cool. We went over that. Compare and contrast the 3 types of contractions. And you can do so yourself. Basically, just give you a little quick overview. What is the function of fast twitch fibers and how do they relate to anaerobic conditions? Okay, so fast twitch fibers are the fibers that we basically activate in our muscle cells that are well equipped for high intensity interval training. That's why I put HIIT workouts. So it's basically that they can work under basically little to no oxygen, and they can give you the contraction that you need. So for example, if you're doing circuit training and you're doing like, I don't know, like 5 burpees in 30 seconds, or I don't know, 30 burpees in 30 seconds, like a burpee per second, something crazy like that. These fast twitch fibers will aid you in contracting your muscles and being able to execute that burpee without necessarily having all the oxygen required for them to really work. And then the opposite for slow twitch fibers. So slow twitch fibers are the fibers that essentially marathon runners work out, because they need oxygen, and marathon runners, the way that I related the two is marathon runners take their time in running, so it's not necessarily a high intensity workout, but rather a prolonged workout that can take, hours. And the key there is that these slow twitch fibers function under, very good oxygenation. So if you ever see a question that says fast twitch fibers, just think anaerobic, which means no oxygen, and think fast interval training. And if you ever see a question that says slow twitch fibers, think, okay, slow twitch means that they need oxygen because it's like running a marathon. That's the way that I relate to it. Okay. All right, let's keep going. So we're going to learn a little bit about the cycles that are present in our muscles and what allow us to, keep moving on the day-to-day when we don't necessarily feed our muscles properly, right? Because like everything in your body, it needs energy, and so do you. The biggest form of needing energy is you needing food, is your body literally asking you for food. But there are certain ways that your muscles can um, accommodate for the times that you don't necessarily have enough food supply, or maybe you're running low on ATP or other enzymes that they need to function. There are different ways that they can manage in order to give you what you want, the response that you need. And the very first one is the Cori cycle. So the Cori cycle. This is the most basic process here, basic explanation that we have of this process. So let's start with here with glucose in your liver. Okay, so glucose from your liver gets transferred to your muscle cell, in which it goes through glycolysis, which is a process in which glucose is broken down into three carbon chain polymers, and as a result, it releases two molecules of ATP. Um, Once it gets converted from glucose to pyruvate, it then gets converted to lactate, in which it then travels to your blood again, converts back to pyruvate, and it does this cycle. So it's kind of repetitive. So it's basically going from glucose to lactate, from lactate to glucose, like that. That's the Cori cycle. And the reason that we need this in our cells is because, remember, energy currency, the way that we can contract our muscles is ATP. So that's the most important part here of these guys. And as you can see, this is the gain of ATP and this is the loss because we're putting energy back into making the glucose. Where here as we are breaking it down, so we're releasing energy. Okay, so that's what those arrows mean. Okay, the lactic acid cycle. Okay, so let me open this one up. Again, these are all PowerPoints that are available to you. So, um, yeah, if you have any questions or anything like that, you can always reach out to me through email, Discord, and I can definitely go into a little bit more detail if you need a more thorough explanation of all of these concepts. Okay, so lactic acid cycle, basically this thing right here. So we have glucose. It goes through glycolysis, and as a result, there are two molecules of ATP that are released, and then it gets converted into pyruvic acid or pyruvate, which is basically the same thing that we have here. So that's pretty much the same. The only thing that differs is that when we have aerobic metabolism, we need oxygen because it's known as the final electron acceptor. I'm not going to get into the very nitty-gritty about it, but just know that um, the lactic acid cycle requires oxygen in order for you to then produce ATP. And this occurs in your mitochondria. That's what this little, bean-shaped thing is. And as a result, you actually get a lot of ATP. You get 34 molecules of ATP. So your cells prefer this type of method. They don't always get it because some people like to do, they go on the keto diet or whatever. So they're actually not they're okay. Sorry. I'm gonna get a little off topic here, but it all relates to it. So when people go on the keto diet, go keto, what they're doing is that they're forcing their body to break down the fats. And as a result, you end up spending more energy in breaking down fat than you are from gaining it. And so that's the reason why people lose weight. In this one right here, you're not really spending that much energy, you're not spending that much ATP in breaking down the glucose, and you're receiving a lot of energy. That's why this is the preferred method of your cells. It's our cells and all biological things prefer the less is more type of way. Like the most efficient, less work, the better it is. And this is essentially it. Okay, so that's aerobic metabolism. That's the lactic acid cycle. Then you have anaerobic metabolism, which is basically what happens in your fast twitch fibers that they do not have oxygen. You're not oxygenating your 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 muscles, and so as a result, um, you're breaking down the glucose. Like it's all good, you get two molecules of ATP, you get pyruvic acid, but instead you convert it to lactic acid, which is what we have here. Um, and as a result, that's kind of what happens. Like that's the feeling that you feel when you're sore the next day. It's that lactic acid buildup in your muscles, um, because you were, working out at a high intensity that you weren't properly oxygenating, and so you know that you did an anaerobic workout as a result. So I think that's pretty cool because you can literally feel the way that your muscles and your body is working out. Any questions? No. Um, the lactic acid cycle also produces a little bit of ATP, but not enough like aerobic metabolism. Um, sorry, anaerobic metabolism produces ATP, but not enough as aerobic metabolism. Apologies, don't want to confuse you guys. Okay, so that's that. But then we also have the creatine phosphate cycle. So creatine should sound familiar to you guys or people that, talk to people that like to work out. Um, basically, like in our body, we create creatine. It's there, it's naturally occurring due to the amount of um, food that we eat, more specifically meat, like red meat or like any protein that we consume. Um, so the way that the creatine phosphate cycle works is that you have creatine, it then has a molecule of ATP input into it. It hydrolyzes to ADP. It gets phosphorylated so ATP adenosine triphosphate turns into adenosine diphosphate. So you're losing one phosphate, and as a result, that phosphate ends up being attached to creatine P, and it then like this is kind of like the reserve, which it says here. So once you were activating your muscles, it then kind of knows to go back and rehydrolyze that. So turn ADP back to ATP, and in doing so, you're releasing a molecule of ATP. It's not the most efficient way of creating ATP because essentially you're not gaining any ATP, but in fact, you're just rearranging it so that um, it's left hydrolyzed to the point where you need it back again, and so it's allowing you to grab it. So kind of like you can think of it as putting away money into your savings, right? So you're putting it away, you're not gaining or losing money, you're putting it away, but then when you need it, you can just take it back. So you're not making any money, you're not losing any money, but you just put it away so you wouldn't see it and you wouldn't touch it and you wouldn't spend it. That's kind of the same thing here. Um, so yeah, so that's the creatine phosphate cycle. Questions, concerns, comments? Okay, 15 people. All right, this is fun. Alrighty, so let's continue. What is the function of skeletal muscle in the body and where is it generally found? Well, where can you guys tell me that skeletal muscle is found and what do you usually use it for? Give me some answers. I want to see interaction from you guys. On skeleton, okay. For movement and heat, okay, yeah, yeah. So skeletal muscle is usually okay. Yeah, good job, Kevin. So yeah, so skeletal muscle is found on your skeleton, guards entrance, exits to digestive, respiratory, and urinary tracts. Um, skeletal muscle. Okay, so that's okay. So good job, Kevin, for responding. Skeleton for movement and heat and support. Yes, skeletal muscle. That's usually where it's found, attached to your skeleton, and it is for movement and support. Jasmine, your answer guards entrance and exits to the digestive, respiratory, and urinary tracts. That's a really interesting answer because we have different types of muscles in our body, and we know that smooth muscle basically composes all of our organs. Um, whether skeletal muscle guards the openings of those organs specifically. Yes, for the urinary stuff. I'm not too sure for the digestive or respiratory. So that would be a really good, little, I guess, scavenger hunt that you guys can do after class if that's still like ringing in your head. Maybe you can look it up. and come to me with it next time. Because, oh yeah, we're gonna have a review for um, next week again for your other exam. So we're working at a really high pace here, guys. Apologies on that. What is the function of cardiac muscle in the body and where is it generally found? Well, cardiac muscle is found in your heart. What is the function? Well, cardiac muscle is there to help aid in the contraction of your heart, um, or basically to make sure that your heart contracts. Um, it has specialized fibers, and it has its own network of nerves and stuff that it innervates. That is a little bit more complicated. And again, what is the function of smooth muscle? What's up? What is exam for? I last time I spoke to him, I was told that I needed to do exam reviews every week. It is whenever you're ready to take it. Okay, yeah. So according to your classmate, it's whenever you're ready to take it. I want to verify with you guys, verify that for you guys. Um, I know that things are a little bit more complicated, but I'll be here doing the exam reviews. So, yeah, I'll let you know. I'll send you guys an email. Okay. Question? That's right, he said he would tell us, but okay. I think all quizzes and exams are open. Ooh, fun. Yeah, definitely. I'll send you guys an email, or I'll bring it up to him so he can send you guys an email. You're welcome. Okay. Okay, we're almost done. We're almost done. We're almost done. So here we have skeletal muscle. Functions, moves or stabilize position of the body. Oh, look at that. Guards entrances and exits to digest the respiratory and urinary tracts. Look at that. You're right. You're right, Jasmine. That's awesome. And it kind of looks like this. So you have your nucleus on top, you have the muscle fiber, and that's pretty much it, these striations. Um, Smooth muscle tissue is a little bit more smooth. It's called smooth because it doesn't have any striations. Um, so we can take the exam whenever we are ready. From my understanding, I guess so. So if you feel ready after this review, you are more than welcome to take it. I'm going to continue, okay? So yeah, so smooth muscle has more nuclei as compared to the skeletal muscle. It's inside of the actual cell, not on the periphery. It has no striations. It's smooth. That's why it's called smooth. And that's pretty much it. A cardiac muscle has the nucleus inside of the cell. But the only thing basically the very big thing that is known that cardiac muscle is known for is the intercalated discs. And you can see that here, these lines right here. That's just a connection from one cardiac cell to the next. And that's very typical of cardiac muscle. Okay, so here we have define epimysium, perimysium, endomysium. And we have that right here. The epimysium is the exterior collagen layer. The endomysium is basically the layer that surrounds the individual muscle cell. And the perimysium surrounds muscle fiber. So again, this is kind of like Inception, like there are layers within layers within layers. So the epimysium, epi, outside, like epidermis, the outermost part. So epimysium, you have your perimysium, which is in the middle, and then your endomysium, which is inside. That's pretty much it. Synergist, what is it? Synergist, antagonist, agonist. So you have that here. Again, this is in your PowerPoint. Your agonist produces a particular movement. Antagonist opposes that particular movement. An antagonist, also in like literary terms, is the bad guy. And synergist, the bad guy because it's always the one that is going against the hero. Synergist, smaller muscle that assists a larger agonist. So it's like the helper. It's the Robin to the Batman. Um, Hormones that increase muscle mass. Um, I didn't answer that one. I didn't see that in your PowerPoint either. Huh. We can do a quick Google search for that one. Let's see what we find. Oh, yeah, I couldn't find it either. Okay, yeah. That's weird, right? That's hormones that increase muscle mass. Oh, there you go. Testosterone, growth hormone, cortisol, epinephrine, glucagon. Okay, so these guys, cortisol, epinephrine, glucagon. This is basically like cortisol is a stress hormone. And these guys are neurotransmitters, but this isn't really it. It's basically testosterone growth hormone, which kind of makes sense because you have these guys that lift weight, the bodybuilders, and they can't inject steroids. Steroids basically is like a mixture of testosterone and stuff like that, estrogen, to further, tell their body to increase muscle mass. So yeah, so you can put growth hormone, testosterone, and estrogen if you would like. Although it wasn't on the PowerPoint. Anyways, moving on. What are the primary muscles used for facial expression? Boom. So we have these guys. um, Yeah, so for those of you that are not taking the lab, this is going to be a little bit more of a headache. For those of you that are taking the lab, this is already kind of familiar for you. Um, you're going to need to know these guys because I do remember that he's going to ask you questions specifically on, what are the muscles of the eyes, what are the muscles of the head, um, or like what's the muscle that surrounds the eye? So the orbicularis oculi, right? Or um, what's the muscle that is known to be in your front head and your forehead, your frontalis. So stuff like that. So for sure, take a look at these, understand where they are, um, and what they do, because we have a question here that is asking about the muscle that helps you do the Einstein tongue. I don't know if you guys have seen the picture of Einstein where he's sticking his tongue out. He's asking you for that is exactly. Okay, so just take a look at this. Again, this slide specifically is in chapter 11. So all these muscles are right here. So the PowerPoint isn't too long, it's like 18 slides long, and it really gives you a description of where it's found, the origin, the insertion, and the action. So, and even the facial nerve that innervates it, which wouldn't help to start looking over now because you're going to have to learn your facial nerves for the next exam. Okay, what are the extrinsic muscles of the eye? So you have 6 of those guys. You have your inferior rectus, your medial rectus, your superior rectus, lateral rectus, inferior oblique, and superior oblique. And each one has a different function. So your inferior helps you look down because it's basically the like holding your eye in place. No, I'm kidding. It just helps you look down. Your medial helps you look medially. Your superior helps you look up. Lateral, look laterally. Inferior oblique helps you roll your eye. When you're rolling your eye when someone says something ridiculous. And your superior oblique helps roll your eye. And they just work either inferiorly, so looks up, or superiorly and looks down. So, oh, look at that. So your inferior helps you look up, which is the opposite. So your inferior is down here, so it helps you look up, and your superior helps you look down. So it helps you look opposite of where it's at. That's a cool little note to make there. What is the masseter? Where is it located and what's its function? So your masseter is right here. It's located on top of your mandible. Your masseter helps you chew. And it also like make sure that your mandible doesn't fall off of your skull. So it's one of the muscles, holding it, attaching it to your skull. Um, List all the circular muscles located in the face. So that's back up here, the circular muscles, the orbicularis. So you have two. You have your orbicularis oculi, which is on your eye, and then you have your orbicularis oris, which is on your mouth. The oculi is the one surrounding your eye. There are pictures of it online. And your orbicularis oris surrounding your mouth. There are pictures online, and that one's the one that basically helps you make the face that you make, the pouting face. Therefore, in order for you to drink out of a straw. Oh, question. Where can we find that PowerPoint? Oh yeah, sure. I'll show you real quick. It's under your learning modules. You go here, you go into the chapter, which is chapter 4, and you have muscle histology, which is the greater portion of the review that we just went over, and now we're going over muscular system, which is this one right here. Okay, so you can definitely reach into that. Check it out. I have class at 10, so I have to leave, but thank you so much. Yeah, no problem. You're welcome. I'm gonna continue going over all of this. This is available for you guys to download, and real quick, let me show you this before you leave. So we have here, so if you click on this and you click here, you can view report, and then once you do that, you can I think download. Sorry guys, I'm not too familiarized with this, but if you play around with it, I promise you that there is an option for you to download it and you can work on it. Okay, you're welcome guys. When is the exam? You're welcome, Kevin. When is the exam? I was told by your classmates that it is whenever you're ready to take it. Oh, okay. Once the session ends, you can access the recording. Perfect. Thank you, Kevin. I was told that the exam is whenever you're ready to take it. I don't know that maybe there's a due date for the exam. You would have to check that out. I'm going to speak to him and ask him when exactly exam 4 is. And I'll get back to you guys. I'll send you all an email, or I'll have him send you guys an email. That way, we have it set in stone when the exam is. Okay? Okay, let me just continue to work on this. What is the quadratus lumborum, the iliocostalus, and the longissimus dorsi? So these three guys. So we have our quadratus lumborum. It's the muscle that connects your iliac crest to your lower rib, to the last floating rib that you have here. Your iliocostalis is this guy right here. It's the muscle that basically comes out of your coccyx and attaches to one of your thoracic ribs. And your longissimus dorsi is this guy right here, again coming out of basically your coccyx, sorry, not your coccyx, your sacrum, and attaching to your ribs. These guys are the ones that help you with standing erect, which is why they're called the erector spinae. And they help in the support of keeping you up. So the functions of them, quadratus, the iliocostalus, and the longissimus dorsi. The quadratus, basically these are all for support, but they have different support functions, so you can definitely get into that. Sternocleidomastoid, where is it located? What's its function? So we have the platysma. Oh, I didn't put a picture of the sternum. Okay, real quick. It's under the platysma, so it'd be right here. Let me get a picture for you guys. Oh man, it's a lovely day to stay in and sleep. Okay. Copy image. Put this guy right here. Paste. Again, I'm not, claiming this material as my own. This is just me compiling it together to better aid you guys in your understanding. So your sternocleidomastoid basically starts at your mastoid process behind your ear. attaches to your sternum right here and also your clavicle. That's why it's called the sternocleidomastoid. Sternocleidomastoid. What's up? Question? You're welcome. Um, okay, sternocleidomastoid, where is it located? What's its function? That's the muscle that helps you rotate your neck from side to side. Look to the left, look to the right. Platysma, it's basically a muscle that essentially covers everything. It's kind of like the blanket muscle. It makes everything, nice and covered and like just sweet and happy that it's all covered like a little blanket. It's a very thin muscle. Alrighty, bye guys. It's a really thin muscle and stuff, so there's that. Here is just the PowerPoint slide that talks about it. Mandible. This is the insertion. This is what it does. Stuff like that. The genioglossus. Where is it located and what does it do? And here, there we go. This is the hint. The Einstein tongue. So the genioglossus is one of the muscles that is found in your mandible, and it's the one that basically helps you stick out your tongue, like Einstein. A good way to remember this is the glossus basically refers to the mouth. So that should be like a little key hint, like a little thing that, goes off in your head, like ding, ding, ding. Einstein tongue. Okay. What are the muscles that comprise your rotator cuff? The functions of each muscle. So the muscles that comprise your rotator cuff are your supraspinatus, your infraspinatus, your teres minor, and your subscapularis. They're called your sits muscles. And basically it's the one that holds your arm in place into your shoulder. And I think this is the last one. Yeah, and lastly, what are the structures that increase the stability of the hip joint? And it's these guys. So it's your femoral head, your acetabulum, the acetabular labrum, which is this right here, and the ligament of the femur, along with the ligaments that are attaching it from the outside, which is your iliofemoral ligament and your pubofemoral ligament, along with your ischiofemoral ligament. So it's really cool the way that your femur is attached to your body, and to the point where like you're able to run, jump, get up, basically hold, like pivot all of your weight into your hips and not have your legs fall off on you. It's really cool. We're designed a pretty cool way. And that's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. Um, um, what else? You have my Discord username. You have the link and where to reach me. You're welcome. If you have any questions and like in regards to the exam, the reviews and stuff like that, I will be sending out an email with information for you guys. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. Thank you everybody for joining me in this escapade, which is the exam review. And again, if you have any questions, just let me know. I'll be here for a couple more minutes waiting for you guys to, think of something, or if not, we can end it here. You're welcome, you're welcome. Yeah, so test 4 is going to be the muscles and joints and a little bit of the muscles of the face and stuff. So PowerPoint 10 and 11. Okay. I suggest you go over that again. Again, most of the pictures that I used to really explain the concepts to you guys were on the PowerPoint or come from the PowerPoint. The muscle pictures a little bit came off the internet, but if you just look up the muscles, then you should be good. And yeah, so also remember the test is not only concepts, but applying the concepts. So for example, if he tells you that there is a lack of ATP in the cell, then that should be a clue like, okay, maybe we're not going to have muscle contraction or not as strong. um, so yeah, so really familiarize yourself with the concepts, excuse me, but also go ahead and practice, what is it called? Applying the concepts. Okay, I hope that answers your question. You're welcome. When will be the next session? So I think we're gonna do this again next Wednesday. Um, and it'll be for the following exam review. So he's got me on my toes. So yeah, so just log in like your normal class time, and I'll be here, and we can have a whole cute little exam review session. You're welcome. You have any more questions for me? Okay, sounds good. Alrighty, Nicole. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.